I'm secretary of the group who drew the report for the chairman to sign, and prepared to explain the substance of our first recommendation by the BCC subcommittee.
Okay.
And in fact, there's only one left because there were recommendations. One of them was an actual recommendation, and the others were to examine, to discuss, to explore, that kind of language, so we could get more information. So the first one, and the only one that we have to discuss, the recommendation was continuation of the present form of government as prescribed in the charter. And therefore, there are several different components of the government as prescribed in the charter. On the 5 commissioners, one from each district elected county-wide, the rationale was each of the 5 elected from a district, he or she knows intimately that district and is responsible to all citizens of the county as a whole, not just to those in their district. And that has worked in Charlotte County for over 40 years, to my knowledge, because I've been here for 40 years. Elections by district can lead to bring home the bacon kind of an attitude, polarizing and leverage bargaining among the commissioners, and the commissioners' big picture view as to what benefits the entire county, where each is responsible to all voters, leads to a fairer use of taxpayers' money. And that was kind of the rationale that we got from the commissioners. And it's noted that there's no other committee that came up with any changes to the form of government from the interviews that they had. And they were with people who are in government, work closely with government, or other boards and agencies. Did not make any proposals for any changes in those in the form of government that we have. We received some proposed changes in person or by email by a few individuals, but they were not representing any organized group opinion. And so it seems the conclusion drawn is that the vast majority of Charlotte County population is satisfied with the present form of government, and we found no compelling reason for the change. So that is our report. The 2 years, four terms, no limits of terms part of it. We, even the commissioners and the committee agreed that leave it to the citizens to limit the terms, or the commissioners themselves by choosing not to run. Few in our history have served more than 2 terms. County administrator appointed by the BCC as opposed to elected. The commissioners are in the best position to measure qualifications and efficiencies. The separation of legislative and administrative as we have now is working well here and works well elsewhere. And then all constitutional officers remain as elected by elections. The people decide. Appointing gives too much power to the BCC. So the conclusion of the board, as you can see from those rationales, is that the form of government remain as it is prescribed in our charter. And so it's open to discussion and debate now.
So are we addressing the first 4 points on the list, Paula? Is that where
the first 4 are all part of our initial. Right. I read she just broke them down into all different parts. But it was the continuation of the form of government as prescribed in the charter.
Are we all in agreement with Paula's report that we leave those first 4 things as is?
Yes.
Tom?
Our committee had a reference and recommendation on constitutional officers. I'd like to pull that out.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Our committee had a recommendation on constitutional officers, so I would like to hold off any action on this part of your committee.
That was on partisan or nonpartisan.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's not a form of government. That's described in general law.
And that could also be in the charter.
Oh yes, but it can be a separate item on which you vote.
It can be a separate item.
Right. I agree with you there. So is there a motion to accept the recommendation? Did I hear a motion?
Well, I didn't hear a motion. I was just asking now. We'll stop it, leave 4 as it is, and take up the other 3. Do we have any, Bill?
Well, I do have a comment on one of them. That first part, and again, I was on the committee, and, you know, we listened to the input of the commissioners. But here's my feeling on it. You know, we can debate to not a kingdom come, what's the best form of government. And I'm just sticking to 5 commissioners, whether at large or by district. Somebody can come up with 12 reasons why one's better, somebody can come up with 13 reasons why the other's better. Or we can surround it with cliches, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'm getting away from that. To me, that debate doesn't belong in here. That belongs out with the people. You know, and here's why. You know, we wrestle with a lot of different language that's in our charter. And a lot of them deal with the management functions. Planning, organizing, directing, how are we going to staff, who reports to who. Classic case was the
Economic development.
development. But there's one principle that's in this charter that goes back to our founding principle, the inalienable right of being able to choose your form of government by those who are governed, not by those who govern. And while I appreciate the input of the commissioners, you know, those of you that have owned companies, you may get your input from your subordinates on how we should hire people, but you never acquiesce that right. You as the owner of that company, that's your call. And the owner of this company is the people. They're bosses. And somehow we've inverted this, that, you know, those who govern know best. Well, maybe they do, given their wisdom. But I also know that's why Washington's a mess, because they've gotten away from the fundamental principle that let the people decide what form of government they'll have. You know, and that, I see that principle in the charter as the most fundamental thing. The right of the people to decide. Maybe it's been that way for 40 years or whatever it's been. To me, that should come up every 6 years. Are you happy or not? Do you want it by district, or do you want it at large? There's no one that's better than the other. I don't have a crystal ball to predict how it would go.
Yeah, but where are we going with this, Bill? What are you asking us to do?
Well, I'm asking that ultimately, that one issue, we let the people decide which way they want it. And in that format, that we don't take a position, you know, we're not advocates of government, the people are. And that if it ultimately comes before them, you know, if you believe they should have this right, that they have the 2 choices in front of them. 5 commissioners at large, 5 commissioners by district. You know, let that debate happen out there. Let them form groups. You know, Trish Duffy came before us, and one thing I remember she says, the people don't get involved. Well, there's a reason for that, people don't get involved. They feel like their input doesn't matter. Now, we've certainly heard a handful of people, maybe 6 or 8 people. But I didn't hear one of them say that, take the voice away from us. Let government decide how we'll be ruled. Government knows best. We'll leave it up to you guys. Not one person advocated that. They're clamoring for input. And so I would just like to see that put before the people. Now, some of you may disagree, and that's fine. You know, you want to not give them that right, you know, then I'll yield to that majority.
Yeah. All right, maybe there is a majority. You know, there's a fundamental premise here that the form of government we have right now came from somewhere else. It was that people decided that. We are passing review on what people thought was a better way of doing things, I don't know, maybe 40 years ago. But the fact of the matter is the form of government we have right now is very democratic. It was chosen by the people through their right of petition or however, and it's not like we have suddenly discovered a new and better way to do government, and the existing form of the government is some undemocratic thing that has to be thrown up to a referendum because 5 people walked in here and said, you know, I think it would be better this way. They have no compelling rationale behind their argument. They don't bring documentation showing that in 9 out of 10 cases in Florida where some fundamental change was undertaken, great, wonderful things happen. I don't think we should get ourselves off in the weeds on this. We are here to review our charter form of government here in Charlotte County, and we are empowered to make those judgments without it being a referendum on democracy. Bill, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
let's move forward here. I want to get this thing going here today. Let's take it on one at a time. Then. On the Board of County Commissioners, 5 commissioners, 1 from each district, elected countywide at large. Are there 8 people who want to raise their hand and say we want to take up that issue?
Take it up.
There
Well,
is
there's a
not.
motion on the floor that
Oh.
remains the same.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. And there's a second, is that correct? Jerry Howard, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
No.
Okay, and 1 no.
Well, that was an exception, the first 3 items, because we have an exception for the 4th one, right, Paul?
Right. Is that correct? Yeah, we do have an exception for the constitutional officers remain as elected. That came up from Tom Rice.
Right.
So the first 3 are taken care of.
Well, it not remain as elected, but as elected nonpartisan is what they're recommending, correct?
Yes.
Now, but you want them to continue to be elected, and that's all we stated. But you're stating you want it nonpartisan.
That's correct. That was
So
the
that's-
recommendation from our.
That's not quite a variance from it.
Well, do you want to take that up now, Tom, rather than?
We should vote on
The
it.
simple thing to do.
Whatever the pleasure is.
Have we voted on the terms of 4 years, no limits on the terms?
Correct.
Yes.
Those first 3 are done.
The first 3 were
The
all.
first 3 were just done, okay. So we're on the 4th one, and we're trying to decide whether we can vote on it, that they remain elected without affecting that motion to make it nonpartisan.
They are really 2 separate questions. There's no harm if you want to vote this one from that committee and then address yours when it comes up, because they're not mutually exclusive.
Because the only different avenue would be appointing, right?
Right. This is just saying they would still
And
remain
this
elected.
is just saying that they
You can
remain elected.
Discuss whether they be partisan as a separate.
Is that okay, Tom?
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as that's clear.
Then the 4th item is all constitutional officers remain the same as elected.
And I'll second Paula's motion that we include that as a 4th.
Okay, motion for Paula, second Jerry, that we keep it the same as presented,
Elected only.
elected only.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
So then the whole motion is approved that what we put forward, that it's a continuation of the present form of government as prescribed in the charter,
Yes.
correct?
And the other 3 do not need a vote from your committee. Those were more recommendations.
Let me see what else we had. We had, the addition of language for review in the MSBU's, but we concluded previously in our discussions that that was part of the recommendation for an annual report from the advisory board, right?
That's right.
So, and then the other recommendation was research the ramifications of exempting churches. So we've just concluded that research, and we've made the decision that that will be taken up as part of the citizens' input, because the idea came from them first. Is that correct? And then explore adding scheduling of a citizens forum, such as the Charlotte Assembly. We decided to add that to the recommendations in the final report. So that's the end of the Board of County Commissioners Subcommittee.
Okay.